Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Hey, guys.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us from, what town exactly?
Orinoco.
Orinoco, Minnesota, Heath Loy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
Great to have you here, Heath.
So good to see your face. And it's great to see all you folks popping in. Connie from Richfield.
Connie.
Joni from Cozy Fall, Minneapolis. Yeah, it's definitely fall all of a sudden. It was like 90 this week, and now.
Yeah, was it like Monday or something? Or
Yeah,
it was like at 90 and.
And then Chris, ready to kick off the weekend in style. And
yeah.
You know, it is cool. It's rainy, so I don't know what you all are drinking out there, but I broke out the Oktoberfest.
Ooh,
Summit Oktoberfest.
Nice choice.
That. It felt very timely, even though it's not technically October, but certainly feels like it today. So Tony, what are you enjoying on this Friday?
I just finished. Speaking of fall and being cold, I just finished my latte, and I'm moving right into my red wine.
I like that. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's it's the weekend, so and it's cold out. How about you, Heath?
Yeah.
So I decided to go with Sam Adams.
Ooh, nice. Good choice.
From my New England homeland.
There you go. So this was the preferred beverage throughout the recording process of this.
Oh, nice. Little tie-in.
Yes.
Wonderful. And it looks like Penny's joined us from Northfield, and Gary.
Hey, Penny.
And Joe says happy Friday to all of you. And I know a lot of our regulars are here, but if you are tuned in and you're new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, this is the show where we invite different artists on to revisit old records with us. And we listen to tracks, answer your questions, talk about the process of making the record. And we are so excited because today...
Generally nerd out.
Yes, and more nerding out than normal because there's not one banjo player, there's not two banjo players, but there's three banjo players on the show today.
Right. Yeah, it's a very special episode here.
That's right, and we're really excited to geek out with Heath today and hear about this recording. I know he has lots of stories, so we're going to try and answer all your questions. So let us know where you're tuned in from, if you're drinking anything, enjoying your Friday. And again, let us know what you think and ask your questions throughout the show, and we'll get to as many as we can. It looks like
Olson
someone
says, Olson that loves the Sam Adams and the bluegrass. Olson, you're in the right place here today.
That's right. Yeah. It's like
Beer
peanut butter and
banjos.
jelly.
Yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly, they go together so well.
So, yeah, like Ellen mentioned, like some of you might be familiar with Heath. If you've been around the Minnesota bluegrass scene, the upper Midwest bluegrass scene, you've probably seen him play in all kinds of different bands, and know his name, or at least his face, from stages for many years. But Heath, for those who aren't familiar with you and what you do you mind giving just a brief bio, a little musical history, where you're coming from, and kind of what led up to the album we're going to listen to today?
Yeah, sure, Tony. So I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, the southern part of the state. My dad played bluegrass ever since I was a little toddler. That's what the music was in the household. So grew up around it. Started playing banjo at an early age. Went to a lot of bluegrass festivals down through the tri-state area, south of us here, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri. And then I met Becky Schlegel, and that was the late 90s. And speak of the devil, there she is. So that kind of opened up a lot to me. I was a member of the True Blue Band in the late 90s there. And that was my introduction to the Minneapolis or metro scene. Started playing a lot around the Twin Cities and outside. And from there, played in several other bands based out of the cities. And, here we are today, still playing in a band, the Pale Ales Bluegrass Band.
Yeah, great band.
Yeah.
A bunch of great guys. So presently still I'm down here in Rochester, actually Orinoco, just on the north side of Rochester.
Great. And so, I know that you've been a banjo player, kind of a standout side person in these bands oftentimes. Where did this solo album come from?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think to answer that, Tony, I'd like to take a kind of walk you back probably a few decades, actually. Like I was saying earlier, my dad took me to a lot of festivals down throughout Iowa, Missouri, and there was a bluegrass and old time country music festival, Southern Iowa, just south of Ottumwa. And I was 14, 15 years old, and this is where I met Randy Coors for the first time.
Wonderful dobro player for those who are unfamiliar.
Yes. So he played in a band called Possum Trot.
Oh, hey.
Nice.
I was going to ask about that T-shirt. All right.
Yeah. And Possum Trot was Ed Long is a banjo player from north central Missouri. He was one of my mentors growing up. I followed him quite extensively, just learning how to play. And so therefore I got to know Randy, fairly well just by going to all different festivals. So if you fast forward to 2009, actually it was 2010, we moved to Nashville. And shortly after arriving, my wife, Becky Schlegel, had a CD release show. She had just recorded an album in the cities here. And Randy Coors was sitting in with her. So Randy and I caught up after the show, and he says, you need to swing by the studio. He has a studio there in Nashville. And he said, you ought to swing by sometime and he can show you the studio, maybe lay down a track or two. And just prior to that, I had written this instrumental that we'll be playing here shortly. And went to his studio. I thought maybe he would lay down a guitar track, lay down some rhythm. And he actually says, no, we'll do better than that. We'll bring Josh Williams in.
Only in Nashville, right?
Yeah, only in Nashville. Isn't that the truth? So that evening, we're talking, and I'm in the construction business, and Randy wanted to make some improvements to his studio, some expanding, and by the end of the night, we had come up with a plan where maybe we could do some horse trading, some
Nice.
studio work for some construction services, I guess.
Nice.
So on a handshake and a couple of these Sam Adams, we had walked out of there with an agreement to start this recording process.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Drakesville, because this is a song that you wrote. And it's the first track we have queued up, and I know everybody's itching to hear this record. Before we dive into the tune, is there anything you want to say about it before we listen, or would you rather say something after?
I'll say something right now. So Drakesville is that little small town in southern Iowa where they had that Bluegrass and Old Time Country Music Association festival. I think at the time, I don't know if there was 200 people population in Drakesville, and they had this adorable little city park. And, for the festival, it would fill up. As a kid, as I remember, it looked like 1,000 or more campers.
Nice.
But that's, this festival is where I met my bluegrass family.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, I've made some relationships, friendships. Even today, 35 years later, some of my best friends I met at this Drakesville Bluegrass Festival. So pretty dear to my heart. And that's why I wrote and titled this song after that.
All right. Well, let's give it a listen. This is Heath Loy with Drakesville here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Yeah.
Wow, that got
All
me
right.
going.
That's how you start the weekend off.
Sure is. That was Heath Loy, who is our guest today on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Drakesville, the title track to his 2018 album. And I'd love to know the personnel. If you unmute yourself, Heath, then we can find out some of the
Yeah.
folks that
I
played
was
on
going to
that
say, that was more
track.
than just Josh Williams and Randy Coors.
I was going to say, there's some hot mandolin and some other stuff happening.
Yeah, Jay Weaver was on bass. So actually, Josh Williams played guitar and mandolin.
Really?
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yep, and then of course Randy on dobro.
Nice.
Yeah, wow. There was a lot of hot picking in that that tune.
Yeah.
Now was this like I haven't known a lot of your original material, Heath. Is songwriting something that you have done more of? Was this kind of your first entry into it? Where does songwriting fit into this?
This was my first entry into this, Tony. And to be honest with you, I might have one or two that I've written since. So it's not something I typically get myself wrapped into.
Okay.
This one came to me and it was easy, and I liked the tune, and I was excited. I wanted to get it on or recorded even before this conversation with Randy. So when the opportunity arose, I jumped on it. So
man, it sounds so good. And for folks who are familiar with bluegrass music, there's a certain kind of timing with like traditional bluegrass banjos. Something I can't do to save my life, but I aspire to it, and I listen to it. And Heath mentioned listening to this from a small age, and I just wanted to share this picture that was in the liner notes.
My goodness!
I'm assuming, Heath, that is you. I don't know if people can see that or not, but
that is me.
Baby Banjo.
Yeah. So
Baby Banjo.
It's clearly in your blood, and man, it just has that hard driving sound. I just love it so much.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And it's amazing that you said that Josh Williams played guitar and mandolin, because I was going to ask if this was recorded live, because the interplay is so, like, it's the kind of thing you would hear at well, it would have to be a pretty magical jam session, but but that you'd hear when people play together live, the interplay of the instruments. And so it sounds like at least Josh had to lay down two different tracks.
He did, right. So here's an interesting little fun fact about that recording. So that night that I went to meet Randy at his studio and got introduced to the studio itself, that banjo track is what I laid that down to a click that night.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So I'm sure you guys know you write a new song, it's your baby, and you're in the moment. And so we laid it down, and thinking that at some point in the future, I would probably redo it, with the rest of the instrumentation. But it just had that magic, being that it was kind of new. So
first take magic.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. So.
Yeah.
So you layered all the tracks after that, or did anyone else play live together? Okay, wow.
Layered in everything else.
That's obviously the sign of pros, where you can make those individual tracks sound like they're live. And
yeah, and the production value is top notch. I mean, Randy is known as a great engineer and producer, but man, it sounds so good.
Thank you.
And maybe this would be a good time to let everybody know. Heath is old school, man. If you want a hard copy of the CD, you're gonna have to get it directly from him, and it's worth it. And we talked to him before the show, and he said you could just send $15 or more, and your mailing address to either his Venmo account or his PayPal account, and he'd be happy to mail you a copy. I mean, we're gonna talk about it, but it's chock full of Nashville A-listers and wonderful songwriting, and I highly recommend you add it to your collection in full resolution.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also, and we're going to talk about all the album art, because there's a lot to pick apart in that cover.
There is.
There is.
Well, I feel like we should wait, because as we listen to these songs, people can start looking at the album art and thinking, because there's a lot to read in there. Not just
there is. There is.
So I can't wait to dig into more of that. But this next song we have, so we're going from Drakesville to Arkansas. In this next,
Yes.
Are we just heading south or east? Southeast, yeah.
Somewhat. So Arkansas came about. So when Randy and I started talking about this project, he sent me home with directions to start thinking about my song list. and what goes or who I wanted for guest vocalists. And Arkansas has always been one of my favorite tunes. I think it tells a great story. It paints a picture in my head when I hear it. So Arkansas, right off the bat, I knew I wanted on this record.
And where's this song come from, Heath?
The Osborne Brothers.
Okay,
Is what is how I know it. So absolutely.
So who'd you get to be on this one?
We had Don Rigsby come in and
wow.
sing this, and that's one thing that will ring true throughout this album. It was almost surreal for me. Randy would ask, "Well, who do you hear singing this one?" And I think I kind of stuttered. Well, I could hear Don Rigsby sing this one, not knowing. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll just give him a call and we'll get him down here." And that's the way it was for every one of these songs. I just had to mumble the words, and Randy made it happen.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
He's like a genie. He's like a
Yeah.
bluegrass genie.
Totally. That's
Right,
exactly
and these
what
are
it
folks.
was.
I'm sure you were seeing Don Rigsby down in Drakesville, at some of these festivals.
Right. I mean, I've seen him at festivals before, and never ever thought that someday I would record a record and he would be singing on it. So, like I said, a very surreal experience.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's give it a listen. This is Heath Loy, Arkansas, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Oh, the brambles took the cabin I was born in, and the briars reclaimed the fields I used to plow. There's a yearning in my heart to be going to that 40-acre patch God sold in Sprout. Arkansas, are your rivers still flowing? Is your cotton growing white as snow? Are the squirrels still barking up on old Crowley's Ridge? Has the girl I was sparking gone and burned another bridge? Arkansas. I have known the troubles I was born to know. I have wanted things a poor man's born to want. And in all my dreams and memories I go running through the fields of Arkansas from which I stroll. Arkansas, are your rivers still flowing? Is your cotton growing white as snow? Do the young men still piddle with the thought of growing rich, and slowly turn to old folks sitting whittling on the stick? Arkansas. Arkansas, are your rivers still flowing? Is your cotton growing white as snow? Do the young men still piddle with the thought of growing rich? Slowly turn to old folks sitting whittling on the stick. Arkansas, Arkansas.
All right. Arkansas from Heath Loy's 2018 release Drakesville, featuring the great Don Rigsby on the lead vocals. And, his phrasing on that is amazing. Like, and the ends of those phrases right before Arkansas, like bridge and stick, but the way
Yes.
the kind of dips and stuff are just so great, so expressive.
Yes. It's very fortunate. I mean, every one of these tunes on this record, when I listened back to it, if I had to do it all over again, Ellen, I would get the same vocalist to sing these same songs. So very fortunate.
Now, were you able to be in the studio when some of these musicians were coming in to do their parts?
Some of them, yes, not all of them. This project spanned over 7 years.
Wow.
So a lot happened in those 7 years.
Yeah.
And were you building? You said it was kind of an exchange of your construction work and improvements to the studio for the studio time.
Yes.
Were you building sort of at the same time? So were both of your work going on simultaneously?
Absolutely.
They're
Tony,
like,
I don't know.
they're like, shut up, Heath. We're trying to record.
Yeah,
Stop
well,
that
Heath, I need you to
buzzsaw."
build us a new room here so we can
Right.
put the banjo a little farther away. No.
Right. Randy and I would work, during the day, whatever project might be at hand. And then, in the evening, we'd maybe lay down a track or we had somebody coming in later that afternoon. So
That's great. And I love the idea that you could like stop your construction work and then like give notes to someone like Don Rigsby, who's like singing on your song and be like, and then he's like, who is this guy in his construction suit here happening?
yeah, right.
And then he hears them play the banjo.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of that, of like notes and things like that, there are some really cool arrangements in both the songs that we've heard. I love the ending of that last one. Really neat little bits. Were you involved in that part of the kind of composing the songs, the arrangement part?
I was, and I recall Randy and we sat in the living room of his house there and kind of went through the song order and made notes. Yeah, for sure. I had, it was a collective thing that we did together as far as coming up with arrangements, and that arrangement of that particular song, Harley Allen and Mike Lilly also recorded it.
Oh, wow.
So, that arrangement is maybe more based off of that one, but all in all,
Yeah, but you can put your own spin on it, right?
Yes.
This is definitely your version
Right.
of a classic tune.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And, it's so interesting that you say you would have done things exactly the same way. Because I would say you might be one of the only guests that we've had that has said that. Because, so many people, like just with time, they look back and they're like, well, I love this record. And that's why I chose to feature it on the show. But, I play the song differently now, or I would have done this differently. And so wonderful to hear you say, no, this is great.
Yeah. I've thought about that many times. And honestly, if I had to do it again tomorrow, I'd end up with the same product. So
Wow.
Nice.
That's
I'm
amazing.
very happy with it.
That's great. Well, I can see why.
Yeah.
At least 7 years paid off. That's the other thing is over 7 years, sometimes people get like bored with a project. Like sometimes you can hear that an album becomes belabored after a certain period of time, like where people are overthinking everything and but everything on this album feels so fresh and like there's an excitement to every track, which I think is unusual for a project that takes this long.
Well, thanks for saying that, Ellen, because it was important to me to have a variety of material as we walk through these songs. I think you'll sense that. I wanted, speaking for myself, I've got a lot of different tastes that I wanted portrayed on this record. But I also think that, no matter who buys this record, if they're a fan of acoustic music, they're going to find something on this record that hits them. Mm-hmm. So that was always the goal, to keep it fresh and live and keep you on the edge of your seat, for sure.
Well, and I think one way to do that is to include original material. And we heard Drakesville, and it looks like the next song we have lined up is another original written by your wife.
Yes.
Somewhere in Rockies. Looks like we're moving a little west now. We did go.
This is a very geographic album.
We kind of went there, and now we're heading out west. I think how cool is that to also be able to, to feature her songwriting. And you want to talk a little bit about the original songs that ended up on the record, and maybe this one in particular?
Yes. So, Somewhere in the Rockies was written by my wife. There are 3 songs, I believe, on the record written by Becky. So I was very excited to bring her material into this and have it done differently than what you would typically expect a Becky song to sound like, whether it be with male vocalists or whatever, just to do it differently, but yet still using her songs. And this particular song, she had written a batch of 3 songs relatively close to each other, as more or less gifts for people that she's known, throughout the years in the music. And when this album came up, this particular song caught my attention because there's just something about the structure of this tune that caught my eye or caught my ear right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy how it turned out. And this particular tune worked great as a duet. So here we've got Josh Schilling, the great Josh Schilling, and the great Melanie Cannon doing a duet on this one, and it worked out just fabulous. Love it.
That's great. And that's like another one of these kind of sub genres, right, of the music, this kind of duet style.
Right.
And so it's like another, like you mentioned wanting to feature these different styles, and I'll attest to that. Like just listening to the selections we have today, each one is kind of encapsulate another thing that I love about this genre.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
So was that something that you heard? Like this sounds like a duet, or how did that?
Well, Randy and I and Josh in the studio thought, this would really lend itself really well as a duet. And all of a sudden the light bulb came on. Well, yeah, of course. When you listen to the words of this song, it just played out so well. I'm so glad that it turned out the way it did.
All right. Well, I'm excited for folks to hear this one. This is Heath Loy, Somewhere in the Rockies, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Somewhere in the Rockies, I adore you. We've been living wild and free so long. I swear in the Rockies, I'll wait with you till that rocky side of heaven calls us home. Yeah, I built you a cabin on a hill, right beside a creek that's flowing soft and still.
In summertime, I'll pick a sweet bouquet every day just to say I love you.
Somewhere in the Rockies, I adore you. We've been living wild and free so long. I swear in the Rockies, I'll wait with you till that rocky side of heaven calls us home. Yeah, I carved a wooden cross to hang above, so everyone would know this house is built with love.
Engraved your initials next to mine with a heart for all time to say I love you.
Somewhere in the Rockies, I adore you. We've been living wild and free so long. I swear in the Rockies, I'll wait with you till the rocky side of heaven calls us home.
Someday we'll be called to fly above. You sparrow, I love me lonesome dove.
High above the Rockies, we will soar evermore, guarding all who grace our cabin door. Somewhere in the Rockies, I adore you. We've been living wild and free so long. I swear in the Rockies, I'll wait with you till the rocky side of heaven calls us home. Till the rocky side of heaven calls us home.
Wow, some masterful singing on that. Somewhere in the Rockies, written by Becky Schlegel and recorded on Heath Loy's 2018 album Drakesville. Heath joining us live today on the show. And Becky is, I think, if she's still in the comments, she's
Yeah.
still watching. I'd love to know what she thought when she first heard this recording of her song, because I will say it sounds amazing. I'd be
Yeah.
stoked if someone recorded a song that sounded half as good as that. Of
And
mine.
for folks who aren't familiar with Becky, she is a fabulous songwriter and performer, and was our guest on episode number 4 back in
Right.
April of 2020. I don't even think there's a video of it. I think I might have it somewhere buried on a hard
Facebook.
drive. I'll try to dig it up because it was an awesome episode, but it was back when we were just getting legs on it. But highly recommend checking her stuff out. But yeah, Becky, if you're out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And she was kind enough to take a chance on this show when we really didn't know what we're doing. We know a little bit more now. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think she still has the best lighting of any of our guests.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She looked amazing. And speaking of which, she was in your barn, which I think this is a great opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
a pretty cool setup where you live in southern Minnesota.
We do. We live on a 100-year-old homestead here. And in the back, there's a 100-year-old barn that we've transformed into a music venue that we have events throughout the summer. I think this year was our 7th year having events in the barn, and it's been such a blessing having this here. It's been so fun. Like I was saying earlier, putting that promoter's hat on. And bringing music to our community.
And chickens.
That's crazy Vic Jordan right there. Yeah. So it's been really exciting. Like I say, bringing bluegrass and a variety of music right here to our backyard, and inviting people to come out to enjoy it with us.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've seen a couple of shows at the Loy Show Barn, and been honored to be able to play there too. And it's pretty amazing. And you can see your construction skills at work, because you wouldn't think this used to be a working barn. I mean, it's gorgeous. There's a built-in bar, and there's a stage, and the old church pews.
Yeah.
If you're in the Minnesota area, you gotta kind of keep your ear to the ground next summer season, because man, you also bring some killer acts. In town, national acts, and really, really wonderful. We'll definitely put a link to the Loy Show Barn in our show notes for this episode.
Great.
Definitely. And Alan says completely awesome. Alan joining us from Texas. And Joni has a good question. She asked if Heath, you write with Becky, and what's that process like if you do?
Occasionally. This is almost kind of a lead-in to the next song.
All right. Thanks, Joni.
So back in 2009, when we had moved to Nashville, Becky started writing a song about one of her favorite singers in the whole world, Merle Haggard. And so that started being out somewhat of a co-write between her and I. And we had just moved to Nashville. And we were there for maybe 2 months, and my mom came down to visit us, which gave us an opportunity. We had a babysitter, because at the time we had 3 young boys. So we had our babysitter, and we were going to go downtown Nashville and actually meet up with Brian and Tracy Fessler at a place called The Listening Room. John Pinnell was doing a songwriter in the round that night. And we drove downtown, got out of the car, started walking up in front of this venue, and you could see in through the mirrors this long bar, and there was one guy standing at the bar. And I half jokingly said to Becky as we were walking up to the door there, I said, "Look, there's Harley Allen." And she was like, "No, there's no way that can be." So we walk in, and I could tell by his legs are up to his neck and snakeskin boots and hair down on his shoulder. I knew right away who it was. It was Harley Allen. So we walked by him, or attempted to, and I thought, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Just prior to moving to Nashville, we had named our 3rd son Harley Allen Loy.
So clearly a fan.
Clearly a fan. Yeah. So we stopped and introduced ourselves to Harley, and started talking and just telling him how big a fan that both of us were, whether it was his singing or his songwriting. Bought each other a drink or two, and about, I don't know, 45 minutes into the conversation, Harley turns to me and says, "Where did y'all say you were from?" And I says, "Well, we just moved down from Minneapolis." And he says, "Y'all didn't just name a baby after me, did ya?" And I'm like, yeah, we did actually. So there was a press release done. Rounder Records forwarded the press release off to Harley. That's how he had.
Oh my gosh.
He had
known
heard about this. That is wild.
Isn't that wild? So Harley Allen actually, for somebody that I didn't know that I really wanted to ever meet this person, because I had just named my kid my son after me. And I already had in my mind what Harley Allen was all about. So I didn't want that tainted.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but he ends up being the very first person we ever run into while living there.
That's a sign.
So anyhow, that evening, he invited us down to the Station Inn because his buddy Sean Camp was singing there. So we followed him down to the Station Inn. We swapped contact information. A few weeks later, he invites Becky and I out for dinner. We met him for dinner at a place there in Brentwood, fancy restaurant, and we sat there and had dinner with Harley for like 3 hours that evening. Wow. Just talking about the songwriting business, talking about his dad. His dad was Red Allen. Talked about his brothers. Just had a fantastic evening. And then even after that, we stayed in touch. He wanted to meet our Harley. We met him for coffee with our, newborn baby at the time. Invited us down to the studio. And then he wanted to get a jam session together over at his house. He was never able to pull the people together for that jam session. So he called me one afternoon and asked if I thought Becky would want to get together with him to write a song.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, well, I
want to know how that phone call went with Becky at that point.
Right. I remember calling her and I said, "You're not going to believe this, but Harley just asked if you'd want to get together and try co-writing a song." And I just remember this long pause, Well, of course. So she meets up with Harley, and in her mind, she thought she'd take this song that her and I started and weren't able to finish, the song about Merle Haggard. She brought it to Harley and thought maybe he could help her finish it. So she got out her guitar and started singing a little bit of this song. And before she started singing, Becky actually said, Merle Haggard's one of the top 10 favorite things of hers, in life, is on that top 10 list. So she started singing the song and she sang it, and Harley said, "I think that song's great, but let's do something with that top 10 list." So here we have top 10 list, and it's just a fantastic song. And, Becky, the way she explained it, it's almost it was very personal to Harley. These words just spilled out of him, just to see a master in action like that was unfathomable experience for Becky, at that time. And sent Becky home with a CD of him, singing that song that evening. I took this song to Randy at the studio and I said, I want to put this on the record.
Nice.
And Randy was floored by the song. It's just a great song. So
I'm gonna second that. And yeah, for folks who aren't familiar with Harley Allen, I'm sure after this bit you're gonna want to go, down that YouTube or Wikipedia rabbit hole and learn all you can. I mean, just one of those next level songwriters and performers, and you're gonna hear it in this co-write.
And one thing I'll say, Tony.
Yeah.
So that night that we met Harley, he invited us down to the station inn to meet his friend Sean Camp. Well, full circle, Sean Camp ends up singing the song on the record here. So
wow, and Sean Camp is just speaking of A-listers, just one of the most amazing vocalists. I can't think of a better person to sing this one.
Neither can I.
You're gonna love it, folks. This is wordsmithing at its very, very best. This is Heath Loy top 10 list here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
A beer that's been sitting on ice in a club, so cold when you touch it, you might need a glove. When I think about it, it's hard to resist. Comes in at 10 on my top 10 list. A good car that's humming down an old country road, Merle Haggard singing on my radio. If I wasn't so straight, that'd be the one man I'd kiss. Comes in at 9 on my top 10 list. My sweet mama's biscuits and gravy from scratch. My dad telling stories that still make me laugh. Spending time with my brothers when I was a kid. 8, 6, and 7 on my top 10 list. The moment I realized that I finally knew that I'd met the one, and that one was you. The day that I asked, and the way you said yes, well, that's 5 and 4 on my top 10 list. The baby that's sleeping in a crib down the hall, the new one that's coming sometime in the fall, the man that I pray to, 'cause I've sure been blessed. 3, 2, and 1 on my top 10 list. 3, 2, and 1 on my top 10 list.
Oh, yeah. What a great love song. That is amazing. Heath Loy top 10 list and featuring Sean Camp. And beautiful fiddles, by the way, on that. Who was playing
fiddles
on that?
That's Timmy Crouch. Tim
right.
Crouch. Yep. He
Nice.
played fiddles on the entire record.
Well, it's a great song. And earlier we were talking about Becky Schlegel, who co-wrote that song, and also someone had I had asked what Becky thought when the song previous, when she kind of heard some of these songs recorded, and she said, "I cried when I first heard it."
Yeah,
I
she
wanted to
did.
make sure everyone knew that. And also, let's see. Joe had a question. Does Kathy Mattea have a song called "Hardly Any Connection"? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if
We
I'm
can
not
crowdsource
sure.
that one. If anybody knows.
But Kathy's on my list. I've been trying to get her on the back catalog. So when we get her on back catalog, we can ask her about
on
that.
our
So-
top 10 list.
Exactly.
That that kind of songwriting, like it gets me every time. Like I get goosebumps. Like when you set up a song in such a way that you have to know the ending. Like I have to know what's 3, 2, and 1. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so brilliant. It's not overly complex. It's just storytelling at its best. I love it.
It's just simple bullet points that a lot of people could relate to, and takes you right up to the end of the song, and you're like, well, of course that's 3, 2, and 1.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
Oh, I see a banjo question.
Yep.
All right.
All
One of
right.
our fellow banjo players.
That's
out there.
right. Another great banjo player, Mr. Jetner here asks, Heath, banjo legends that influence you.
Wow. Well, let's start with the basics. Earl Scruggs.
Mhm.
J.D. Crowe was a huge influence to me growing up. Bill Emerson was another big influence. And a lot of other banjo players down through the southern Missouri. Robbie Boone is another great influence. I've been listening to a lot of banjo music over the years, and you take a little bit from everybody, and you hope that you make your own style, your own sound. So pull a little bit from a lot of different banjo players.
Nice.
Well, earlier, I think it was Joe, someone had mentioned that they'd love to see the close-up of what your fingers are doing on some of these tracks. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, you do perform out here and there. And these days with the Pale Ales Bluegrass Band?
Yes, with the Pale Ales Bluegrass Band. We're having a ton of fun. I love playing music with these guys. Marty Maroney, Scotty Stebbins, Dave Towsley, and John Neiman.
All-star band.
We pull material from all different genres, which has been very exciting. Just trying to keep it fresh for the listeners, but also fresh for us, which I think is a key thing to keep any band rolling. So
That's right. That's great. And again, if folks want to get this record and all of these amazing performances, it is available. You can get it straight from Heath himself. You can find it on the streaming places, but you can get the full album with the packaging, which we're going to talk about right now. But you can send $15 or more through Venmo or to PayPal, and he'll send you a copy. Maybe even put a signature. Although I'm not sure where you're going to put the signature on it, because the cover is pretty packed with stuff, which I think we need to bring on the screen and do a little dissection about this.
We need to dissect this for sure.
We need like a tour guide for this.
Yes,
cover.
this is
a
brilliant.
lot going on there.
This is brilliant.
Oh, it's amazing. And I have to say, this whole concept is great. So who had this? Was this your idea?
So this was my idea. I've had 2 dreams growing up. 2. One was to record my own album, and the second dream was always to be on a Field and Streams magazine cover.
Nice.
So I thought, well, here's my opportunity.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll never get on a Field and Streams, but I could come up with a Field and Strings album cover.
Oh, it's amazing.
So
brilliant.
It looks like you're gonna hunt or like get the fish or the deer with your banjo, which I love.
Yeah, we're duck hunting here.
I love it.
See the ducks.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I called my good friend Mitch Kezar, who is an absolutely incredible outdoor photographer, and I said, Mitch, I recorded this record, and they're telling me that they need a picture of me for the cover, and I wanted something totally different. I feel like I've seen every banjo cover photo, the guy leaning up against the wood fence with the red barn in the background.
There's probably a railroad track in there somewhere.
Definitely a railroad track.
So I wanted something different. So I called on my friend Mitch, and it was great. Mitch says, just grab some of your camo and your banjo and head my way. So,
I love it. And there's I think Joe mentioned earlier, some good humor on here too.
Double clutching.
Clutch and Weasel,
Yeah.
and I see 8, 6, and 7 on my top 10 list. See page 10.
Oh my gosh.
That's
So
great.
that's what I want to know. I don't have this physical copy, which I need to get at pronto, but it says full story inside. I want to know, is the full story inside of
Here, I don't know.
you,
Yeah,
Heath Loy?
you probably can't see it, but Yeah, you'll have to get the record and then you can read it.
Find
There
out.
you go.
There's a pretty good story in there.
Here, there's.
Awesome.
I just want to point out. You can't really see; it's kind of blown out here, but there's a lot of text. We have all the personnel. Each song has its own, grouping, and we have
And then the
another
baby picture
great
too
little
in there.
picture of Heath sneaking. Watch
Sneaking
out,
around
the
the tree.
banjo's going to get you, folks. And then a nice little write up, and and then we got baby Heath on the back.
my
You too
goodness.
can have all of this for
Full story. Get the full story
Get the
for
full
a
story.
song.
for just $15.
Yeah.
And so much great music. That's the main thing, of course.
Yeah.
And if you've been, I mean, again, we're hearing it in the high res version, and it's amazing. So if you're on the fence, don't be on the fence. Otherwise, Heath might get you with that banjo. So
Yeah.
Well, and I got to say, this show is really about albums. If you really break it down, because songwriting is great and this and that, but it's about this time in people's lives, and it's about things like you've always wanted to record an album and you always wanted to be on this record. I mean, this is what it's about. It's a kind of a unique art form, and I love all the stories so far have been so amazing, and I'm glad you shared the bit about the cover too, because that helps bring it home.
Yes.
And certainly when you talk about a snapshot in time, even though this was recorded over 7 years, it kind of encapsulates your time in Nashville. So it does capture kind of a time in your life.
Oh,
even if it's a
absolutely.
longer time period of time. And, Alan right here asked the question that I was going to ask. So he says, what do you do for your next album cover? How do you top that? I was going to ask that more generally for this album. You have all these all-star, singers and instrumentalists. Is that why, will there be another album? Or, I don't think you've done a solo album since this, right?
I have not. And you know what they say, never say never, right?
Yeah.
So, it's always, it could very well happen again. If the stars lined up and it would come together, I would for sure do it again.
If
And I
Harley
would-
Allen calls you up, you'll say, fine. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So no, and as far as the album cover, it would just be another edition of Field and Strings.
Yeah.
Instead of
maybe I'm
ducks,
hunting
it'll be
out.
something else, or it will
Yeah.
be fish or something.
Right, and that's
It'd
you're an avid outdoorsman,
Yes.
so I think that's so fitting.
Yeah, kind of tied it all together. And just like we were talking earlier, if I had to do it all again, I'd have the same cover.
I love it.
I love it.
So great. Well, we're closing in on the end of our hour, but we have time for one more song. We're getting through all of them today.
Yes, we are
Great.
going.
We're not going to shortchange you.
We made a pact. We're going to get through all 5. And
Yeah, before
I
we came
definitely
on,
didn't
we
wanna-
were trying to figure out it was hard enough for Heath to narrow it down to 5 songs. And we're like, we're going to get through all of them today. We can't always get through 5 songs, but we're going to get through all 5 today. And so is there anything you want to say about this song before we take a listen?
I'll tell you one thing I'd like to say. I feel that the truck driving songs are a lost art. I just don't think you hear them anymore, like you did maybe 20, 30 years ago or whatever that is. But it was important to me to kind of bring that back to the forefront. And this is a classic Del Reeves truck driving song. And just like we had talked again earlier, there's no one else I could think of singing this other than Jim Lauderdale.
Oh man,
One
and
of
Jim
the best.
Lauderdale's just so amazing. I just can't believe all these all-stars on here. And I just want to tell a quick story that I was lucky enough to record down in Randy Coor's studio after this had been recorded. And Randy gave us a sneak peek of this tune. And there's a hook in this song. I'm not going to reveal what it is, but it's going to be in your head, folks, for the rest of the weekend. So let's just get right to it. This is Heath Loy, "Girl on the Billboard," here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Who is the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway? Rolling down the highway in my Jimmy hauling freight from Chicago to St. Louis, Lord, I see her every day. A double clutching weasel like me can hardly ever get a girl to look at him that way. Like the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. Wow, what a girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the in the field near the big old highway. I bet it wouldn't take her long to be gone if someone would pull a dirty trick and take her towel away. I slow my Jimmy down to 20, that's how many wrecks I see there every day. Caused by the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, I love the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. I guess I'm getting bolder, cause I'd rather kiss and hold her than just keep a-looking at her every day. At 4:45, coffee drinking, eating time, Jimmy shimmies while I wake up the artist who painted the display. The girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel and the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. Doggone that girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel and the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. Sleepy-headed painter said the girl wasn't real, better get on my way. On Route 66 from the billboard to Chicago, you'll find tiny pieces of my heart scattered every which way. Scattered by the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. 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 Yeah, it's scattered all over that highway. Tiny pieces of my heart. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, that girl with that towel up there. Do-do-do-do-do.
Now that's how you kick your you kick your weekend into high gear. Girl on the billboard, that was Heath Loy's voice of Jim Lauderdale.
Isn't that fun?
Oh, so fun. I've gotten to open up for Jim Lauderdale a couple times now, and I have to say, nicest guy.
He is.
So prolific. And I mean, I feel like he puts out like at least one record a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also love that he's the best dressed person I ever, like, even if he's playing a solo show, he's wearing the nudie suits.
Yeah.
He's a sharp dressed guy, and now he's sporting the facial hair too. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes,
or not, but,
yes,
yeah, looking good.
Class
so
act.
good, and
he for sure is.
Well, you've been a class act, Heath. This has been so much fun. These songs are so great, and what great stories. And if you all have enjoyed it, then you want to like it on YouTube, and also, throw a little money Heath's way. Pick up that record. Get the full story. We've only gotten a taste.
Story.
Yeah,
get the full story.
That was only
by
5 of the 10 tracks. I mean,
I know,
Right.
and then you can read all about Heath's story and Field and Strings, and get a copy, share with your friends, and check out the Loy Show Barn and the Pale Ales Bluegrass Band. And if you just want to send a note to Heath and find out more about any of this stuff, you can do that. The email's about to come on the screen. Are you ready? Heath Loy at AOL.com.
yeah.
So.
And we'll put all this stuff in the show notes. If you're just listening to this episode, it's just back catalog listening party /128.
That's right. And thank you all for joining us. This is what makes this show great. Obviously, we have to have great artists like Heath joining us, but it wouldn't be anything without all of you listening with us, asking questions, commenting, joining in on the fun. And this has been one hell of an hour of music.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Tony
great.
and Ellen, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do here, and then for inviting me as a guest. It's just fantastic.
Oh, man, it's been our pleasure, Heath. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. This has been such an enjoyable hour, such a great way to kick off the weekend. Everybody agrees here. This was so much fun, says Chris, and a big heart from Joe. And I'm just going to second what Ellen said. We really did this to do what music does best, which is bring people together. So we thank every one of you for being out there, but especially this group of people that wouldn't let us quit, Ellen, right? Like we did this during the
We're
lockdown.
like,
We did this during the
things are coming
lockdown.
back,
Yeah,
and
we'll do it for like, a year, or what did they say? It would be 6 months or something, and we'd be back
Yeah.
out. And 2 years later, there we were. But it was this group of people that are now our Patreon community that really gave us the motivation to keep going. So we want to give a special shout out to them. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, the Homestead Pick and Parlor right here in Minneapolis, Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, Many Tracks, and Nikki. And if you want to be part of this community, you can just go to patreon.com/back catalog listening party. But like Ellen said, really, it's just about being together every Friday at 4 o'clock Central. And so thank you all for being here.
Yeah, and also, if you are new to the show, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get notified. We do this every Friday at 4, not with Heath every week, sadly.
Unfortunately. But we do have a bias for banjos.
It is true. I'm not sure if there's going to be banjos next week, but I can tell you we're going to be having a very special guest joining us from across the pond. So joining us from Europe next week. So we're very excited about next week's show.
Yeah,
and
we sure are.
And Becky says, backlog is a treasure. Thank you all. Well, Becky, thank you for being a part of the show too over the years.
Thanks for sharing Heath with us today.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. First weekend of fall. Enjoy it. And thanks again, Heath.
Thank you, guys.
Thank all y'all for being here. We'll see you next week on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Do.